Hey guys, this is Chris Nglezu. Welcome back to another episode. So I'm going to keep it as short and sweet as I possibly can. Today, I want to have a conversation about conservation. Specifically, I want to ask you guys how you feel about keeping endangered species in the aquarium hobby. So I'm talking about people keeping them at home. I'm talking about them coming into the aquarium hobby. Should retailers be allowed to get them in? If they do, should they be fined for doing these things? Do we need a way to help hobbyists keep more endangered species so that we don't lose them in the wild? Are we then creating more demand? Should it be only aquariums and zoos that do these things? And if so, should they all follow one set of guidelines, or as it is now, sort of all have their own different rules and guidelines about how they do the husbandry and how they keep them, disease management and, you know, nutrition and all these types of things? So in the simplest way possible, if we think about, I don't think it is as simple as what many people seem to believe, that we just absolutely shouldn't be keeping any of these species in captivity at all. Because in some cases, and I do think it's important to look at all these different cases individually, rather than just have blanket ideas about things. In some cases, you may find that a species is endangered, its habitat is at risk, for example. And if they are all in the wild and there are none in captivity, then if something happens to that habitat, that species is gone. In that respect, I can see that there are benefits for that species, that some of them should be kept in captivity for breeding purposes. And I think it's important that captive breeding actually results in reintroduction. And, you know, in some cases there are very complex matters that impact habitats, and so it can be very challenging to get species back into the wild. Also, sometimes you have a zoo in, say, Germany, just off the top of my head, that wants to keep a really endangered species from Turkey. And then when it comes to putting them back in the wild, there's so much red tape around transporting one species from A to B, that it just isn't really realistic. This sort of thing I find frustrating. You don't really see the end goal. You don't see the tangible conservation taking place. You just see a huge collection of a very rare fish outside of its habitat. And that can be a little, I suppose the best way to refer to it is, it's like underwhelming, especially if you're interested in conservation and helping make a difference for some of these species. So I think what I would like to ask you guys is, what does good conservation in the aquarium hobby look like? And how do we make sure that we get it right for those species? I want you to think about all the different variables, guys. Like, talk about, should there be these just total bans on species, or should we be looking at localities, for example? You can have the same species in multiple localities. Is that too complicated? Should we be looking at, should we be looking at it under a more of a microscopic lens, looking at the finer details, rather than just trying to put bans on things in place, or fines and all these sorts of things. And then if you do go down the route of fines, are you just making it easier for people with more money to commit crimes? There's so much complexity to it. Anyway, to keep it simple, let's talk about the very, very basic thing first. Should endangered species be kept in aquariums? And how do we make sure that we do that the right way? All right, thanks very much. Have a fantastic day and see you at the next one.